binomial expansion. Let's have a look. Write down in descending powers of p. So what does that mean? That means that powers of p will be going down. So let's say p to the power of 3, p to the power of 2, p to the power. That's what it means, descending powers, going down. The first 3 terms in binomial expansion of. And then we have our, oops, what happened here? We have our binomial expansion. Give each term in its simplest form. For example, the first term should be in the form ap to the power of 7, where a is the constant. Okay, so binomial expansion, how do we do that? Well, we have the formula in our maths table, page 20. We have the formula. The problem with this formula is that it looks a bit complex. However, it's not really that complex if we kind of pay attention to it. Okay, look at that. It's about adding terms. Right? You can see it every time I add up and then add up more and then I add up terms. Okay, so what is the element of each term? So first of all, we have a bracket, which means a combination of our numbers. Where do we start? We start with n. What does the n represent here? Look at that. That's the power. So in our case, that will be 7. And then we go from 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way till we get that we have the same value. So in our case, it will be 7 and 7. Then the next thing, add the 2 elements inside. Now, what can be a little bit misleading, that in this case, you only have 1 element, you don't have the second element. And I will explain why on this example. But every other term have 2 elements. So x, the first element in your bracket, in our case 2p, and then y, the second element in our bracket. Okay, so let's apply that knowledge here. So we are starting with a bracket. We are saying 7 choose 0. So that's what it means. Out of 7, we are choosing 0. That's where we are starting. And then that will be multiplied by the first element in our bracket, which in our case is 2p, multiply by the second element in our bracket, which is 3. Plus, and then another element. The next element will be 7, choose this time 1. And again, my first element in the bracket multiplied by the second element in the bracket. And then again, 7, and this time choose 2. And again, the first element in the bracket multiplied by the second element in the bracket. Now, we don't have to do the full expansion. They are only talking about the first 3 terms. Okay, so again, what does our formula tells us? So the value of the power here is the same like here. So meaning if I have 7 here, that's when I have 7 here. Then the next one will be 1 less. That means in our case 6. And again, 2 less. So that means 5. So you can see how the powers of p are descending. First is to the power of 7, power of 6, power of 5. So they are going down. Now, what happened with the second element? That will be here power of 0. Here I have 1 will be power of 1. Here I have 2 will be power of 2. Note, those 2 values will always be 7. 6 and 1, 7. 5 and 2, 7. The next one will be what? 4 and 3, 7, and so on. Okay, we get the idea. The reason why the formula omits that, because any number taken to the power of 0 will equal 1. And in the process of multiplication, that makes no difference. The only way you could get caught up here is about the fact that it's not just p that is taken to the power, but the whole 2p is taken to the power. And now all we have to do is work our values out. So in your calculator, we are putting 7, choose 0. Now, the way you're going to get that C value, usually on your calculator, it will be above one of the bottoms. It will be NCR. So that's what you press. Usually you have to press Shift in order to get that NCR value, and you're going to get that C. So you press 7, then you press Shift, then you press NCR, C will show up, and then you press 0, and that's how you're going to get it. And when you press equal sign, it will give you a value. So the value of the first one, 7 choose 0, that will be 1. Multiply. And here we take 2 to the power of 7, and then we take p to the power of 7, and then multiply 3 to the power of 0, that will be 1. Plus. And then again, in our calculator, we put 7, choose 1, and when we press equal, we get 7. Multiply. And again, this time 2 is taken to the power of 6. Multiply by p to the power of 6. Multiply by 3, because 3 to the power of 1 will be 3. Plus. And again, in our calculator, we put 7, choose 2. This time we press equal and we get 21. And again, we multiply 2 to the power of 5, and then multiply by p to the power of 5, and multiply by 3 to the power of 2. Now, the next thing is just to get the numbers in our calculator. So in this case, we know multiplication by 1 won't change anything. We can just put 2 to the power of 7 in our calculator, and we're going to get 128. And let's not forget about that p to the power of 7. Plus, and again, what we put in our calculator, 7 multiplied by 2 to the power of 6, multiplied by 3. And when we press equal, we're going to get 1, 3, 4, 4. And let's not forget about the p to the power of 6. Plus, and again, in our calculator, 21 multiplied by 2 to the power of 5, multiplied by 3 to the power of 2. And again, when we press equal, we get 6, 0, 4, 8. And let's not forget about the p to the power of 5. Now, I want to draw your attention only to one thing. If they said here in ascending powers of p, because watch that, which element have ascending powers? The second element have the ascending powers. And there was a question like that once, and then the first element have descending. So the first element, the powers go down. The second element, the powers go up. If it will tell here in ascending powers, so meaning powers of p go up, all I have to do, I just have to change the way it is written so that it makes sense. Therefore, 3 will be the one that will be descending, will be going up, and then 2p will be going down. Yeah? Sorry, the other way around. 3 will be going up, and 2p will be going, 3 will be going up, down, and 2p will, Jesus, that is a tongue twister. Again, the first number goes down in powers, and the second number goes up in powers, yeah? Okay, I hope I didn't confuse you. I hope you got that.